morning.
Hi, how are you?
How are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Excellent. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, officially, because I
Yeah.
think I waved at you from.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being so kind with Miles. He loves you guys, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Of course.
So before we get into your artwork, which is fascinating, your story is wonderful. I want to begin with one of the things that really kind of got in the way of things was living through COVID, and we're on the 4 year anniversary. How did that affect your art? How did that affect how you approach things, and how has it changed you now that we've kind of come out of it and the pandemic's over?
I think for me, actually, it helped my art because I had more time, to just kind of think about things. I was still working,
Hmm.
but it wasn't quite like when pre-COVID, BC, before COVID.
Yes, exactly.
So I got to be a little more creative and really like dive deep into myself, ask myself some questions that I hadn't before, and then just produce, produce, produce.
So, how did this all begin for you? Talk to me a little bit about how art became your fascination, and that was what you were going to pursue in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandpa, who I partially grew up with, he helped raise me in New Mexico. He's
Hmm.
from Buenos Aires, Argentina,
Okay.
and he's been an artist since he was a child.
Mhm.
Amazing artist. He does huge sculptures that are 9 feet tall, huge paintings. He's just like a genius.
Yeah.
And I would watch him paint, and I would paint with him when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He died when I was 14. And I believe that when people die, they sometimes give something to you.
Yeah.
And for me, I just started to feel the need to paint after that. Like I just constantly did it. I'm self-taught. I never went to school for it.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes I'm like, I wish I did because I would have maybe learned some cool stuff. But
Yeah.
I also don't, I'm one of those artists, I don't really want someone to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that I didn't go to school either.
Sure.
But since then, I've just explored. I do different kinds of art. I do realistic portrait paintings to things like this, where it's just moss and I just put it together on a wall. I just like to see experiment and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I've been painting for a long time myself. There is something about being self-taught and being curious on your own. It almost creates a level of originality that's kind of off the
Yeah,
charts.
for sure.
So who were inspirations for you in the art world? Were there any painters or anybody that you just love looking at their work?
I love Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
I think I just love how his mind is like crazy. You'll see an elephant with stilts in the mountains. It's just so off the charts, but he's just free.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Well, even with, I mean, he was in motion pictures and there was so many
Yeah.
things that he was involved with. I always like to think about COVID as being melting clocks because my concept of time during that was just blown. And I just
Yeah.
think about just the melting clocks on the wall.
It
So
was, yes. Yeah, it was like we went into a different time dimension for
absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
So did your grandfather push you to be kind of curious and to do different things, or how did that become a part of what you do? Because usually painters have a style. There's something that they
Yeah.
do, and that's kind of their niche. But it looks like you're all over the place, and anything could really, I mean, anything could come in, and you could explore that idea.
Yeah, I would say he did because I would see him doing sculptures of people and it looked very realistic. And then he would do a crazy abstract sculpture that looked like a Tim Burton movie. Like it just looked out of this world. He didn't really have any like a style, I would say. He did
Mhm.
in his own way,
Mhm.
but at the same time he was an explorer. He didn't
Yeah.
want to be told what to do. So
Yeah.
I feel that way too. I was looking at Picasso's work the other day. He started out very realistic, and as he got older, he started to get more abstract to the point where at the end of his days, he was drawing something you don't even know what it is
Uh-huh.
because he wanted to be free. So I just want to be free with my art.
So what was the first show? What was this first step for you to get out there and to show people your work and to kind of begin that process?
So my first show was actually at the Parlor, downtown Kansas City, in the basement. It was a great turnout. It was all realistic portrait pieces of people I kind of idolize. For example, like AOC Ocasio-Cortez, she's a Latin politician.
Uh-huh.
People like that, people really enjoyed it, and I sold out of the show. So I was like, "Oh, this is freaking awesome. Like, let me
Yeah,
let me try it again." So then 2 years later, I did it again, but my concept was different.
yeah.
Um, and I still need to do a new show soon. I don't
Yes.
know, we'll
So, what
see.
brought you to Kansas City? Talk to me a little bit about how you came here and how that kind of changed maybe your creative approach or opened up ideas.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Mexico,
Mhm.
deep in the mountains. We're an hour away from a grocery store.
Yeah.
Um, so we had a very different way of life, me and my family. We would hunt, we had a garden, we had an outhouse. My family hates when I say that, but it's true, we did. And it was very beautiful. It was nature really connects you in a way that you just kind of open yourself more.
Yeah.
But I was starting to get into high school, so we decided to move here because it was going to give me more opportunities
Yeah.
and work for my family. So we came here. Um, I would say when we came here, I struggled because I was so used to being in nature, and then Kansas City doesn't really have that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was in a huge high school. I had never seen this many kids before. So my art got really dark and like
Yeah.
sad for a while. Um, but I've always gone through fluctuations with my art.
Yeah.
I like to put my emotion in my art.
Yeah. So, did you always want to be an artist? Were there any other dreams that you had, or was this the central focus for you?
You know, I've always been open. I still don't know really what I want to do. Currently, I own Café Corazón. It's the first Latin coffee shop in Kansas City,
Yeah.
and that's completely different, than art. But my art is in there.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to do that. We have goals with that. But I think I will always do art because it's not just fun, it's therapy for me. I
Yeah.
feel like it really calms me. When I'm angry or like frustrated in life, I just get to let it go.
Yeah.
It's kind of my muse in that way.
That's the thing about art is for the creator, there's a level of therapy that goes into it. I've read articles where in senior citizen centers and assisted living centers, they have the people do watercolors and it's just for their
Mm,
mental health. So it's
yeah.
really, yeah, it's purely about them just getting everything out. It extends their lifetime. I mean, they've done extensive studies. So there's so many therapeutic things that go into actually, you know, getting that out there and creating for sure.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That
Yeah.
does.
So let me ask you this. Who's been a hero for you in your life? Who's been an inspiration overall for you, not only in art, but just in general, being a business owner? Who's been that for you?
I know this sounds cliche to say, but my mom.
Mhm.
But it's because my mom is one of those people that she's a planner, not a dreamer, I would say. But when she wants something to get done, she will get it done.
Yeah.
Like if she wants it, she'll find a way to get it. And I think that's very admirable because not everybody's that good at that. It's like a skill. So I'm grateful that she taught me that.
Yeah. So if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now, whether it's an artist or someone you admire, who would you love to meet?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. I don't know. I like being myself. But if I had to choose someone else, oh my gosh, I maybe Beyonce.
Okay. There you go. There you go. She's pretty good about weaving together the visuals and the art pretty well into what she does. Yeah.
Definitely. I think
Pretty
she's
magnanimous.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the favorite art gallery that you've ever seen? Like the on your travels, what's one of the art galleries that you would love to always go back to?
I would say so. One of my favorite artists, his name is Klein Wiley. He did Obama's portrait piece, but his paintings, he usually paints black figures, like modern day, but makes it look like your old European art in the
Yeah.
background. Like it might be like riding a horse, or I saw his show in San Francisco. It was a whole collection of his. It was beautiful. I would definitely go there
Yeah.
again.
So the one thing about Kansas City is that when people hear about Kansas City, they think we're a Midwestern town. They don't really think about the arts. Were you surprised at how arts and culture driven Kansas City is?
I would say so, yeah, because you would think it's just a like a country town,
Mhm.
corn. A lot of
Yep.
people say that to me. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's actually a city." But there's so much culture, and I mean, jazz was kind of born here too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented artists here, musicians, dancers. It's kind of a hidden gem, and I think it's finally being discovered.
Yeah. Absolutely. It certainly is. And things like soccer and sports, those are really pulling people in and making people
Yeah.
see that there's so much more that goes into it. So I'm curious, what is your favorite thing about Kansas City?
I love the Midwest hospitality. People here are pretty nice. Like anywhere I go, they're pretty welcoming. If you bump into them, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There's no rudeness.
Yeah.
Or, "Hi, how are you?" I think that's really nice with
Yeah.
Kansas City.
So let me ask you, what was it like the first time you sold a painting? The first time someone decided to buy it? Do you remember that moment? Like the where you were like, wow, this is amazing. You know, that I mean, it's one thing to create, but when someone really wants to invest, because the thing about artwork is it's almost like a lifetime commitment. They're going to keep that for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Do you remember that
Yeah,
time?
I do actually. It's funny you say that
Yeah.
because for First Fridays, before we even opened Café Corazón, I would put booths up on the street and I would sell my art. At that time, I was painting on records, and it actually I have some in the other room I can show you here in a bit.
Yeah,
But
sure.
um, I was selling them for like $5, $10. And I was like, "God, I don't think anyone's gonna buy it," you know?
Mhm.
And then people bought so many, they were like, "Oh, this is so cool." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
like people actually like my work." I think as artists, sometimes we undervalue ourselves. We think,
Yeah.
"Oh, nobody's gonna like this, nobody's gonna understand it." But then a lot of people relate to it that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because there is an undervalue thing that goes into being an artist. So when did you get to a point where you were comfortable saying, I can make this a certain price to validate who I am, what I'm doing? Was there ever a bridge that you had to cross to get to that point?
Yeah, I would say that was like a year and a half ago.
Hmm.
It wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. I was taking a long time to paint these very realistic portrait pieces. I was using gold leaf, all these materials. And I have a business, so I understand you have to see how much your materials cost, your time. And I realized I'm charging way too low for this. Like, it's not even covering my hours and my materials. So I at least need to cover that and some,
Yeah.
because it
Absolutely.
only makes sense. So people still say my work is actually really low priced for what it is.
Yeah.
But I also like to keep my art a little affordable because I feel like art should be for everybody. It
Yes.
shouldn't just be for people who are very wealthy.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're competing against places like Target and Walmart that are putting out I mean, and realistically, with the way the prices are going in our society, it's like people should have original artwork on their walls. That should be something that everybody should be able to have for sure. Um, so I did notice in one of your videos there was a jazz-centric vibe going on. What's your background and love for jazz?
Yeah, I love jazz. Like one of my favorite singers of all time is Ella Fitzgerald. Her voice is beautiful.
Yeah,
Um, I love Billie Holiday. I think the women in jazz don't really get talked about as much as the men sometimes.
yeah,
So I'd like to pay homage to them a little bit. Um, but I've always just enjoyed the creativity and where jazz came from, the pain it came from.
Yeah.
That's art within itself. They just created their own way of singing, their own kind of music.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Have you been down to the American Jazz Museum?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Many times.
because Ella's dress is in there and it's yeah. So do you go and see live jazz much here in town?
I do. The
Yeah.
Blue Room is a good
Oh,
place to go.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, anywhere in 18th and Vine is great.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really cool clubs that at night they stay open till really late, and they have performers in there that are so good, but
Yeah.
nobody really knows about these spots sometimes. You have to
Yeah.
like know someone who knows.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah.
super cool.
But it is amazing here in Kansas City how every night there's literally 10 to 20 to even 30 things going on jazz-wise. So it's pretty active. What was the first jazz show you saw here in Kansas City that kind of blew you away? Was there a memorable first time that you saw a gig?
You know, I think it would have been when I moved here. I had a fake ID at the time, okay? I'm just
Yes.
being
It's
honest. I
okay.
was
It's
young and
okay.
I was a little wild. And I went on a date down to 18th and Vine to the Blue Room. And I was just like, wow, someone was playing the sax
Yeah.
and there was a man singing. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, like, how are these people not out in the world getting more famous because their talent is just so good compared to some artists we have today that I would argue, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
This is my opinion.
No, I
But
agree. Yeah, I agree. And I can do the same thing. Every time I go and see a show locally, I'm just blown away by how good everybody is. And since I cover jazz and have the show, I hear from all the musicians where they're just like, wow, these people are amazing. I mean, and people are
yeah,
moving here now. It used to be kind of a springboard where they would want to go to another city, but everybody's wanting to come here now. So I'm curious, with that level of culture and music and things going on, how does that affect your art? How does Kansas City get in to your bones and into the way that you
mhm.
actually put it on canvas?
Yeah, so I just recently actually did a show about Kansas City people. And I did a realistic portrait piece of different people in different cultures in Kansas City.
Yeah,
From the Native Center to dancers. And I was just trying to show kind of their emotion through the piece. So, for example, there's one, her name is Angel Zuong. She's a dancer here in Kansas City, really good. Dances for Quixotic,
yeah,
if you know.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
the painting of her was like, she's so good at modeling, and she was holding her neck and she
mhm,
was crying in the painting. And I painted her tears gold, kind of to show that like a woman's emotion is so powerful, so strong, and it should be honored,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So she's crying gold, she's crying her soul out. So I would say Kansas City people really influence me in that way through my art. Also recently I did a show. They came here to KC and I was the judge for the show.
cool.
And they did chalk art of jazz musicians
Oh, cool.
here in Kansas City. And that was really awesome because I got to see these different interpretations of what they thought of jazz in Kansas City. So that
Yeah,
was really cool.
that is cool. Well, and I think I saw that painting on your website of the woman with the golden tears, and I think in this modern day and era, and I'm not going to get in anything political, but I think that there's so many rights of women that are getting taken away, and it's so unfortunate. I think the strong imagery of the woman and even showing that pain is emblematic and so good for us to see. I think it only is going to make, I don't know, I just think it's going to make women stronger. I think there's a level of that that needs to be put out in this modern day and era, you know?
For sure. And I mean, what's cool about KC is we just opened the first women's stadium in the world for the
Yes.
current, which is like, wow, how cool is it to be a part of a city that just did that and that everybody's supporting them? I see people with Kansas City Current jerseys everywhere now.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I remember watching a documentary about the women's team, and they were really teamed up with Billie Jean King, and they were trying to come up with these ways of pushing soccer. And she just told them, "You guys need to take the reins, and you guys need to create something of your own, create a league." And then
Yeah.
now we got the first stadium, and it's huge. And that's the thing. I've been here my whole life, and I keep seeing all of these things that are just pushing things further. I mean, there was a time when soccer wasn't a big deal in Kansas City. Now we're the soccer capital of the world. And we got world championships in football, and the teams baseball's done good. So there's so many things, and that only enhances the arts and culture. That will make your work and all the work of the artist more viable. It's kind of a all of the gears are working in that wheel, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's cool. Kansas City is, I feel like, an up and coming city
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So what I want to know at the end of the day, what are you the proudest of? Whether it's with your painting or anything that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of up to this point?
I think I'm really proud of me and my family opening Café Corazón
Yeah.
just because had never really been in the coffee industry.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people don't know this, but the coffee industry is a slave industry. If you're not careful where you're buying your coffee from, you're giving your money towards that.
Yeah.
Um, it's the third most important thing in the world. So that comes with a lot of bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud that me and my family, we've found a way to get direct contact with farms, get it beyond fair trade, meaning we know that it's fair, everybody's being paid correctly, there's no slavery involved, and that it's grown so much in the city to the point where we have two locations, we're looking at a third,
Wow.
but that we were the first one. I think I'm really proud of that because we did that as a family,
Yeah.
and it's hard to work with family sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think it's so amazing and beneficial. So
My stepdaughter is half Panamanian, so she's very, very into the Latina vibe. So it's so good to see business owners and see things thrive. I think we've even been in there and had a cup of coffee before. So
oh,
she's
yeah.
she always seeks it out, so it's a great thing. So the one thing about being an artist is they just see the colors, they see what you create. And I think there's a lot of people, when you look at a nameplate, you're curious about the artist. So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, all of your fans, but you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh.
This is the therapy part of it.
Well, I think that I have like I'm really I believe I'm a very strong individual. I know that if I'm like my mom, if I want to get something done, it will be done. Um, I don't have any doubts in that. I I think I'm a manifester. I really like even this interview, I think about this a lot when I'm driving in my car painting and I think of these things happening and they come. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm let's see, I'm also really grateful for my husband, Chris. He's amazing. Such a good, wonderful person and my family. I'm a very family oriented person.
Yeah.
I think as an artist too, I'm a very happy person, but when I'm really sad, I'm very sad. And I usually put that in my art.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I will just keep it inside of me and it will hurt me.
Yeah.
So I think I have like strong emotions. I'm
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
the interesting thing about you saying that is, I think that's one of the hardest things about being a creator is that you have to be true. You can't have just like a halfway approach. You have to put it in there. And isn't that therapeutic in itself? Do you find that creating is in itself a level of therapy for you? Because obviously people love it, they buy it, they want to engage in it, but do you find for yourself that you heal through the process of making this artwork?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, even for example, the other day I did a custom work for someone and it was their mother who they had lost. And I was painting her. And I've never met this woman in my life, but it made me sad, you know? And I cried sometimes because I was like, wow, this was someone's mom and I have the honor to be able to paint this. And then it made me think of my mom, you know, and how I really need to do right by this painting
Yeah,
because I would want someone to do that for my mother. So there's a lot of like, as an artist, especially when you're doing art for others, there is a lot of therapy involved
yeah.
because it's a lot of self-reflection.
Mhm.
Like you said, you have to be true to yourself. If you're
Yeah,
not, it feels so wrong when
yeah.
you're done.
Well, and we see that with music too. The best people that made this, Ella put her heart on her sleeve from the word go.
Yeah.
Billy did the same thing. And yeah, I mean, especially with Billy, she had kind of a tumultuous existence, but in a
Yeah.
lot of those singers, the black singers, that, they couldn't hang out in the same place they would sing in. They had to be shuttled around. So all of that came through their work. And that's why we're talking about it now. It's going to be timeless for the rest of history. Which is a
Yeah.
good lead into my next question. As an artist, what's your vision, say 10 years from now? Where do you want yourself to be, either creatively or in a show sense? Where do you want your work to be?
Mhm. You know, I think I would just I enjoy where I am now, but I would like to expand on where I am now. So meaning that I wouldn't mind being in museums. I think that would be so cool because I
Yeah,
love museums. They're usually the first place I go to when I go to a different city.
yeah,
So I would love to be in museums. I would love just for more people to see my work.
yeah,
Um, Not in an ego way, but if they can relate to it, then just admire it and feel it. I think also though I want to start not just painting but doing maybe sculptures or even like projection sculptures of
yeah,
things.
yeah,
I need to learn how to do it, but I think I can learn how to do it. I want to My next show, whatever it may be, I want it to be a show that when you go in it, you're fully immersed
yeah.
and you're like, "Whoa, I've never had that experience."
Yeah. I do that when I go to the Kempers. Sometimes they'll have exhibits that come through there that are fully immersive like that, where you
Yeah.
walk in the room. Remember there was one that we went to where you walked in the room and it was kind of interactive. There were lights coming down, the room was dark, and you could really kind of get in there. And that's the thing. We have five senses, and if you can get to a point where you can satiate most of those, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But that's the beauty, I think, of creating, is that there's no boundary to it. It's like space. There's no wall. You can go as far as you want. You're already talking about doing sculpture and other things, which leads me to wonder, is there a level of doing sculpture that would be a homage to your grandfather and kind of
Hmm.
memorializing that relationship?
Yeah, I think so. Just because sculpture is such a different medium, it's 3D, whereas I paint 2D. So that's a whole, when I see people doing sculpture, I'm like, you're very talented because it's hard to imagine something 360 view.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's just different, but I would love to do that. And then, have you ever been to Meow Wolf or heard of it?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't been there.
I think I would like to do something there. So
Yeah,
it's basically they have I think 5 in different states. One is in my hometown state, but when you walk in, it's like the size of a Costco or a Walmart.
yeah.
There's different rooms. For example, you might open like a washer dryer and it takes you down a slide to a room with all dinosaur bones.
Oh,
Like it's
wow.
so weird. Each room is like what you said, 5 senses. There's smell,
Yeah.
taste, touch, everything. I think I would like to be there.
That's cool. That's totally cool.
Yeah.
So let's get the good business out. If anyone wants to get a good cup of coffee in one of your establishments, they want to buy
Yes.
your artwork, see your artwork, anything about your world, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so if you want to go to Café Corazón for a Latin cup of coffee,
Mhm.
Latin and indigenous, because I'm half native, half Latin.
Yeah,
Um, it's cafe and then Corazon, Cafe Corazon, KC.com. And then for my art, it's my first and last name, which is gonna be a lot. So my first and last name is long. It's DulcineaHerrera.com.
excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking a
you.
minute out. And I can't wait to see your work in person. So keep making the great work. And again, thank you for being so good with Miles. He loves you guys.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Miles is so sweet. Tell him we said hello.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.